Hello, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Talking Business with Dr. Sandra. It's another sunny Saturday morning here in South Florida, and I am so happy to be here with you. This morning, I want to talk about a very special topic. Would you believe that we are 27 days away from the midpoint of 2024? That is to say, in 183 days, 183 days, that will be the 30th of June, we will be at exactly halfway through 2024. So, what I want to talk about this morning is where you are. And so, the title of today's episode is Mid-Year Reality Check. Time to inspect, reflect, and correct. That's a mouthful. Let me say it again. Mid-year reality check. Time to inspect, reflect, and correct. Now, at the beginning of the year, businesses, individuals, we set goals. And we start out with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. And sometimes by February, I don't know what happens, but things, some of the goals, most of them, they go right through the window. And so my question to you this morning is one, where are you with respect to your goals? Are you on target? Are you ahead of target? Are you off track? Or maybe you don't know where you are. That last one is not good at all. So let me start by saying ignoring reality will not change reality. Ignorance is not bliss. So not knowing where you are is definitely not a good thing. So a good place to start is to figure out where we are. If we don't know where we are, we're not checking on where we are. It's like expecting a garden to grow and each day you're not watering it, you're not nurturing it, you're not talking to your plants. And so you may feel that you don't have a green thumb, but you're not doing what is necessary for that garden to grow and flourish. And it's the same with the goals that we set for the organization, whether you set them January or you set them in your last strategic planning session. The fact is that we can't expect that these goals will just magically come to life. That's not the case. We have to do what we have to do to make it happen. And so I want to share with you a 10-point mid-year checkup that I am suggesting, highly recommending actually, that you should do as soon as possible to see where you are. And the first one is performance review. And I'm not just talking about performance review that you're doing a performance review of yours of your staff members, which is something that needs to be done. But I'm talking about evaluating the progress that you have made towards your goals since the beginning of the year by looking at those goals and to see if you are on track and which ones are lagging behind so you can take corrective action. So what were some of the key metrics that you came up with at the beginning of the year, right? So we want to review those key performance indicators, those key KPIs to assess the business health. So for example, look at your sales targets. What is it that you had started out in January wanting to achieve each month? If you have sales representatives, are they on target? How are they doing with their quotas? What about your customer acquisition rate? What about your profitability? if you're checking your metrics for your social media, have you achieved the number of followers, for example, that you wanted, maybe say on Facebook or on LinkedIn? What's your customer retention rate? Whatever the KPIs that you are tracking, you want to be looking at them and to see where you are right now. What are your churn rates and so on? And then the projects that you have in queue, you want to check the progress of those projects to see, if they're are you meeting your milestones where those are concerns. And having done so, then you can figure out, is it that you may need to adjust your timelines? Do you need to allocate more resources to these projects? What do you do for the projects to be on track, for you to be delivering within budget, and for everything to be going well, and for the customers to be happy with what you're offering? So that's number one, right? The performance review, checking the numbers. Checking the numbers. You don't want to have your head in the sand. I always say that a head in the sand is a tush in the air, and a tush in the air is bad for everyone. And nothing good can come of having a tush in the air. All right. Now, the second point, the health check point, is financial health. Compare your actual spending, with your budget for all the different departments. And even if it's a small company or as an individual, you want to do the same thing. Where are you in your actual spending against the figures that you had budgeted? Identify the areas where you're overspending, the areas where you're probably underspending, and adjust accordingly. You don't want to wait too late to do this. Are there opportunities that you have received that maybe, you need more cash in the system in order to be able to deliver on those projects? And sometimes being ahead of targets can really stress your operations, because now you have financial obligations that probably you didn't plan for. So even if you're doing better than you thought you would have been doing, you may need an injection of capital. So whether it's a loan, or probably you have to put in more of your own funding, maybe you have to get more deposits from your clients, whatever it is, but you have to make those necessary adjustments if you realize that you are not where you are, whether you're under or over. All right, so that's the budget and the analysis of the budget, and there's the revenue and profitability. So when you look at your revenue streams today and your profitability, what are the trends that you're seeing? What are the opportunities that you're seeing where you can increase your income? Right? Are you seeing anything that maybe you didn't see in January and you're seeing, wow, we could increase our revenue stream in that particular area? Or are there opportunities for you to reduce your costs? That is the case, then you want to do that as well. What about your cash flow management? Is there sufficient cash to meet all of the operational needs and expenses? Are there any unplanned investments that came about that you need to make some adjustments? And then adjust the strategies accordingly if you have any shortfalls. Now, checkup point number 2 is your market and your competitor analysis. We don't want to be operating with blinkers on, right? You want to be aware of the market trends. Things are changing so quickly. Stay updated with the trends in the market and in the industry, and make sure that you are seeing how these trends will affect your business and adjust your strategies accordingly. What about the competitive landscape? Yeah, you have to pay attention to what your competitors are doing. You're not the only game in town. So analyze your competitors' performance. If the information is publicly available, make it a point of business to review and see how things are going. How are they performing? What strategies are they bringing to market? And identify areas where you can gain a competitive edge based on what you're seeing. Or is there a gap? I know you need to play catch up. If that is the case, then you need to do what is necessary to make that happen. Check up point number 4, your customer insights. Are you listening to what your customers are saying? Yes, we collect the information, but are we stopping to analyze this customer feedback and understand their needs? What are their preferences? Are there any pain points that they're having that we can take into consideration as we improve our products and our services? It's important. We don't want to be working in silos within the organization and not listening to the impact, because the customer is why we do what we do, right? Now, customer retention rates. How are you doing in terms of retaining your customers? So we want to look at our customer retention strategies and to see if they're effective. Identify ways to increase customer loyalty and reduce churn. I know they say a bird in the hand is worth two in the bushes. If you have a client today or a customer today, it's just make good business sense, and it's much cheaper to hold on to that customer as against having to go and get another customer. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on trying to get new customers, and that is quite okay, but never forget the customer that you have today. You want to reward customer loyalty, so pay attention to that, okay? Now, item number 5 on the checklist is your team and your leadership. I think this is the core of it, right? You can't do it without the people. And so the first thing is the employee performance. So we're in June, and by, say, the beginning of July, you should have all your managers working on the performance appraisal, media performance appraisal for all the staff members. And this is very important. I know sometimes we feel that we're so busy, there's so much that we have doing that we don't have time to stop and do this. But if we don't assess how people are doing, and if we don't give them feedback, and not just feedback, but timely feedback, then they won't know what's going on, and they can't take corrective action in the time required just for the results to be evident. So those who are doing well, we want to recognize their achievement. Yeah, pat them on the back, say doing a good job, send something out, publicly recognize them, and if you need to reset the objectives, then do that. Doesn't make sense to be chasing something that is impossible, because that frustrates everyone. Sometimes actually we really have to just wheel and come again. We have to assess where we are. We probably have to just go back and reimagine what we thought. Probably what you thought you wanted to do in January. Maybe things have changed and maybe it's not possible. Training and development is also important. What training plans did you put in place in January? How much of that has come to fruition? Did you, for example, set up a training for persons to go to, for them to maybe do better with how they're managing their work-life balance, and they didn't go because they didn't have the time? Imagine, right? So we want to make sure that even if we had these courses, these workshops set up, like how was the attendance rate? How are people benefiting from it? Check the feedback to see attendance, what are people saying, how they felt about it, and make sure that those who did not go, have conversations with them, because you definitely want to see that, the training needs have been addressed, and that you are investing in your staff members' professional development to enhance their skills. And of course, that is going to enhance their productivity. So training and development, definitely you want to look at that box to see how things are going. There's a saying, that if you want to keep your people and want them to be productive, then you have to invest in training. And there's a running joke that the CFO for this company said to the CEO, who was talking about investing in training and development, that, this is wasted money, because if you do that, then, they get better and they leave. And the CEO responded to him by saying, "But well, don't train them and keep them." Let's see how that's gonna work out for us, right? So we definitely want to invest in training and development. And then the leadership is very important. Are you evaluating your leadership team to see how your leaders are doing? Reflect on your own leadership as the CEO or as the team leader or as that department manager. And even if you are a leader without a title, reflect on your own style, reflect on how you're doing. What are the management practices? What are the leadership practices? Are you being innovative? Are you seeking feedback? Are you identifying areas for improvement? Very, very, very important. Check up item number 6, strategic adjustments. Now, sometimes we realize that, having done the review, that some goal reassessment is in order. You may have to reevaluate the goals based on current performance and market conditions, and you may have to adjust them as needed. I always say be realistic, in your goal setting. The goals should be achievable. However, it should not be a walk in the park, right? It should stretch the team, but it should be realistic and achievable. So if you really have to do some tweaking and some readjustment, that is fine. Now, innovation and adaptation, clearly, you want to encourage innovation, and you want to ensure that, you're open to adapting your strategies. The fact that you decided that you were going to do X or Y in January and it is now June, if things have changed, then you need to change. You have to consider new technologies, new processes, new business models maybe that could benefit the organization. We don't want to continue doing what we have been doing if we're not getting the results, because if you continue to do that, then you're going to get the same results, the same results that you're not happy with. So the next item on the risk assessment is compliance and regulation. You want to ensure that you are compliant with all the relevant regulations and standards for your particular industry. There are some industries, maybe like healthcare, law, where construction, there are some very specific reports, there are specific standards, there are things that you must do, there are authorities that you have to ensure that you're in compliance with, and you want to ensure that you're not just in compliance, but you're staying informed, because sometimes there are changes. You want to make sure that you are abreast of any changes in the regulatory environment where this is concerned. You don't want to be caught flat-footed and find out at some point in time there may be an audit and you find out that you're not compliant. If there are particular certifications that you need to qualify for certain jobs, then you want to ensure that those certificates are in order. Nothing has expired. Your bondings, your insurance, all the things that you need to ensure that you're compliant. You want to make sure that you check on this and make sure that everything is in order. Now, checkpoint number 8, and this is stakeholder communication. And I think this is very, very important. And we talk about stakeholders, we're talking about those that are within the organization, those that are external to the organization. So from your investors to your board, your leaders, your managers, your staff, vendors, suppliers, the community that you operate in, all the above. You want to ensure that you maintain open communication with all these stakeholders. You want to ensure that you provide them with regular updates, what's happening, any progress, any changes to goals and strategies, because you want them to be a part of the conversation. You want to have a feedback loop that is open, and these feedback loops should be clearly established so everyone knows, how to get information and how to give information. We want these stakeholders to feel involved. We want to make sure that also when we gather the information, we get their insights and we hear their concerns, that we take them on board. And it's not just collected and, the information, is placed on a shelf literally to gather dust. And we want to use this information to make more informed decisions in the organization. Sometimes it's hard to see yourself 360. Right? It's hard to see the organization 360. And I always say that it's very difficult to read the label from inside the bottle. Think about that. So you need feedback. You need feedback from others. Check up point number 9, personal and professional development. You can't do it without the people. You can't do it without the people. And at this time, you want to do an assessment to see if there are any particular gaps in the skill set of the team members at whatever level in the organization, so that we can address them. Whether we need to seek out additional trainings, seek out additional workshops or mentoring opportunities, and these mentors can be within the organization. If you're a smaller organization, probably you may need to seek some mentors outside of the organization. But we have to ensure that we close whatever skill gaps that may be there. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to achieve the goals that we so want to achieve. You may have to adjust the budget. If you started out in January with X dollars put aside for training, and now you realize that the gaps that you are seeing, to close them, you may need to invest more. You may have to do some tweaking with the budget to make sure that this is possible. Networking is another thing that you want to look at. Where are you in terms of networking as an organization, and the individuals that are probably out there in the community, out there in the field, whether they're develop business development persons, your account managers, your marketing executives. How do you help them to strengthen their professional network? Are they attending industry events? Are they members of particular associations and relevant groups? Are they engaging in, with their peers and their colleagues to exchange knowledge and to find out about new opportunities as they come up? This is very important. Are they writing articles? Are they sharing? Are they active on social media? Are they ensuring that others are seeing them as experts in the field? And if this is not the case, then we want to ensure that, we get back on track. Are you expecting to have a certain number of maybe followers on your social media? Are you expecting a certain conversion rate, certain number of new accounts to be acquired per quarter? Whatever the case may be, I think networking is very, very important in helping to make sure that this happens. And check up point number 10 is future planning. Now, having done this kind of review, this detailed review that we're talking about, having done the first 9, then the next thing you want to do is to ensure that you look at future planning. Now, future planning is reflecting on the long-term vision and mission of the business, and ensuring that the current goals align with the vision. How is it that what we are embarking on, what we have set out to do, how is that lining up with the long-term vision and the mission of the organization? So think of it as your long-term mission and vision being like the lighthouse, that guiding force, that centers you. That's what you're about. And you want to be sure that you're not drifting off track where that is concerned. It is said that sometimes we end up at a place and we wondered, how did we get here? but it didn't happen overnight. So it's almost 6 months into the new year. And what happened is that we drift gradually. And so if we're not paying attention, you end up being off track, and then you now have to take corrective measure to get back there. And that's why it's so important to keep your eyes on the ball, as it is said. You want to pay attention to those numbers, pay attention to the metrics, so that you know, especially when you're going off track. It's just like in your personal life. If you want to maintain a certain weight, you decide that you want to eat right, you want to go to the gym. What are you doing to ensure that that happens? Do you have a scale in the bathroom that you can just step on it each morning or each evening to see when you're going off track? So that's how it is with the numbers. It's I know sometimes it's more comfortable to just continue working and not check on what the results are. But from my own experience, it does not work. You have to pay attention to the outcomes, because you may be barreling down the wrong path. You may be putting a lot of effort into something that is not giving you the returns and the outcomes that you want. So that's the long-term vision and part of it. But the scenario planning is also important. Scenario planning is the what ifs. You look at different options. There are a million and one ways to look at something or to our approach to something. So we want to develop scenarios for the second half of the year, especially if we see that things are not going the way we want them to go. We want to prepare for different possibilities and have contingency plans in place, just in case things are not going according to plan. And sometimes they don't. If Mr. Murphy steps in, definitely they won't. So by conducting a thorough mid-year review in these 10 areas, I think that we can make very informed decisions on how to drive business and personal and professional growth, as we move forward into the remainder of 2024. And all of this was tied up in my first point, which is ignoring reality doesn't change reality. A sand in a head in the sand is a tush in the air, leaving you badly exposed. Now, another thing I want to mention is, how do you ensure that you get the job done and get the results that you want? And I hasten to say that people do what you inspect, not what you expect. Don't leave it up to chance. People do what you inspect, not what you expect them to do, right? And I'll use the case of Toyota. Toyota is a well-known brand, affordable, but well-known for quality. And when you think of how did this come about, how did they become this company that is well known for quality? It didn't happen overnight, because as a matter of fact, there was a time that anything that was made in Japan or that came out of Japan was seen to be very low quality, and that has long changed, but it changed because of some deliberate, intentional things that they did and some deliberate, intentional things that Toyota did, right? So they're known for their rigorous quality control processes. The company's success is due in a big part, I think, to its practice of regularly inspecting and regularly giving feedback. So there's this feedback loop that they're getting regular feedback, and they are constantly inspecting what they're doing, whether it's processes, whether it's the parts that they are using. And this is totally different from Some other organizations, when people are afraid to give feedback and to especially negative information, and then you know what happens at the end when everything crashes. So the lesson here is that by continuously inspecting their processes and their products, Toyota ensures high quality and efficiency. And this very proactive approach prevents issues from happening. Rather than reacting to them, they are ahead of the curve. So they are being proactive by preventing the issues rather than waiting until something happens to react to that. And that's what I want us to be doing in our organizations on an ongoing basis. The regular feedback to the staff, the checking of where you are, and not waiting until it is too late. So the takeaway really is that regular inspection and feedback loops drive better performance and accountability in the organization. The next thing is that change begins within. So if you do your assessment and you realize that some changes are necessary, then you have to do what is necessary. Change starts in the mind and with our way of thinking. And if something is not working, you have to be willing to question it, interrogate it, get to the bottom of it, and don't sink your heels in and dig in. I think it is now time, when something is not working, to step back and really do a deep dive and assess, because it doesn't make sense to continue doing the same thing. You're going to get the same result. And there's a saying that, only a person who is crazy, mad, local would continue to do the same thing and expect a different results. Don't be afraid to admit when maybe you don't know the answer yet. Right? You don't know the answer yet. You are in search of the answer. And it just makes sense to stop doing something that is not working and figure out a better way than to continue doing the same thing. We want to look at how the way that we're thinking, how it affects everything. A positive and a proactive mindset can change, transform challenges into opportunities. But we have to be willing to accept that maybe the stories that we're telling ourselves about why X is the way it is may not be so. Maybe the information that we have may not be accurate. Maybe the facts that we think we are working with, are they correct? Yes. And so we want to ensure that we keep our eyes on the ball, we're having a positive mindset, and we are making the necessary changes as we need to. I dare say you have to get comfortable with discomfort. Yeah, that's hard. Get comfortable in not knowing. Because if you're starting with uncertainty, at least you know that you don't know. So it's better to be in a place to be doing something about what is not working, as against simply continuing to do what we know, although it may not be working well. A change starts in the mind. That's where it starts. And a story that comes to mind is what happened with Starbucks when Howard Schultz went back there in 2008. And if you recall the story of Starbucks, like he had left, then he went back, and he was called to come back because things were not well. Let us say things had gone south. And when Howard returned to Starbucks in 2008, the company was really struggling. And he recognized that a shift in mindset was really needed. And people needed to get it. They needed to get it into their consciousness. Every single person in the organization had to understand that they were off track. They have lost their way. They had taken their eyes off the mission and the vision. And one day he closed 7,100 stores to retrain the baristas on how to make espresso and to refocus the company on its core values. I mean, think about that trade off, what it would have cost to close 7,100 stores for an entire day. But this was important because this change in thinking and refocusing on the core principles of the organization revitalized Starbucks, and it led to a very, very successful turnaround. So the takeaway here is that change begins in the mind, and a shift in thinking can lead to great transformation in your results. If they're not where they want to be, and even if they're where you want them to be, there is always room for improvement. Now, tactical adjustments. If something is not working, what are you going to adjust? And sometimes, what are you going to end? Sometimes, the situation calls for what I call a necessary ending. Yes, that's uncomfortable. We're creatures of habit. We don't like to change. We don't like to end things. That's why we stay in bad relationships forever. That's why we stay in a job that we feel stuck in, because we don't want to take the risk. We don't want to change. But you have to change course. If what you're doing is not taking you in the direction that you want to go, you have to change course. I'll share the story of Netflix. And it's a story that I like to use because it shows, what happened and what can happen if you are willing to change your mindset, if you are willing to end something. If you're, the opposite of that would be Kodak. When digital photography, it was clear that that was the way of the future. They thought that, maybe that was not for them. They remained stuck in the past. They remained focusing on film photography. And we know the cost, the great price that they paid for that bad decision. Now, on the other hand, Netflix, they realize, that rental services, DVD rental, that was not going to be the future. And Blockbuster didn't realize that, So recognizing that the landscape had changed, and seeing the potential, for online streaming, they pivoted their business model, and that strategic shift required them ending some of the things that they were doing and investing heavily in streaming technology and original content. And we see the results. It has literally transformed Netflix into a global entertainment powerhouse. And the takeaway here is that you can't be afraid to pull the plug. You can't be afraid to make a necessary ending on something that's not working and pivot based on evidence and based on the market trends. Pivot to doing something else. Pivot to a better future. And when we talk about pivoting, sometimes maybe it's not something brand new. It could be tweaking, something that's not working. But sometimes it's something more drastic, something more radical. And everybody's situation is different. Everybody's situation is unique. It may be looking at the new hires that you made. Are they working out? It probably may be, looking at the marketing campaign that you launched recently. Are you getting the results that you want? Is the campaign succeeding? Is it failing? What's changed in the external environment since you made your goals in January? Would that mean that you need to revise them? So swift action is very important. You don't want to wait too long. If a change is necessary, then what's stopping you from doing it now? Why wait until next week? Why wait until next month or next quarter? If it is not working, then, as I said, pull the plug, count your losses, lick your bruises, as they say, and move on. If you think about a business that probably has a product line or a service line that's unprofitable, and you want to hold on to it, and you don't want to let go of it for whatever reason, maybe sentimental reasons. Maybe that's not a very smart thing to do. Maybe the smart decision, based on the evidence, and I always talk about the evidence. Don't trust your feelings 100% of the time. Sometimes they're wrong. Even your intuition can be wrong at times because it's based on what stories you have in your mind that, that intuition is coming from, or how you feel. Where is that coming from? Is it coming from a place based on facts, or it is just a story that we have told ourselves? Yeah. So it may mean that based on the evidence, you may need to give it up. You probably may need to start over again. Sometimes it's difficult, but you have to, think about it. Why would you drink poison slowly? Just take a little bit each day, because it's not going to kill you immediately. You realize how hilarious and almost ridiculous that sounds. No, you wouldn't do that. So don't waste time on resources on bad decisions. If you realize that you have made a decision and that decision is not serving you well, then I'd say move on, end it. Next step. I think of Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and how he talks about embracing failure and uncertainty, and his willingness, to do that. I recall when they decided to go into a particular space in the market where they were going into doing auctions. They wanted to compete with eBay head on, and probably a lot of people don't even remember that because Amazon is so successful now. We don't remember the things that didn't work, and it was a dismal failure. It really did not work, and they quickly pulled the plug and no, we're not going to do that. That's not working for us. Let's focus on what we can do well and what's working for us. That's how they came up with Amazon Web Services, AWS, which is now a major revenue driver for the organization. It came out of uncertainty. They started, it was a risky venture in the beginning, uncharted territory. And sometimes, starting with not knowing is not necessarily a bad thing, because it forces you to go and get the information. I'm not saying that you're going to be uncertain and you just jump in and get going, but uncertainty is not a bad place. It to me, it's the beginning of wisdom, because it forces you to do the hard work that is necessary to get the information that is required, right? So the lesson there is that, being comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, right? Being comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, and taking the calculated risk, right? So it's not gambling and doing foolish things. It's taking calculated risk based on research, evidence, and input, and so on, that you can continue to innovate and you can stay ahead of your competition, and you will be on target with your goals for 2024. So embrace the discomfort, embrace the uncertainty, because this can lead to significant innovation and growth. And be proactive. Don't wait until the last quarter or the last month to realize that you are off target. If you put into place the 10-point checklist that I shared with you initially, doing the performance review, making the regular check-ins a habit, a way of life. There are organizations that have a powwow check-in meeting every single morning in their departments right across the organizations. And the research shows that it is extremely very useful. It keeps everybody on track. What went wrong yesterday? What can we do about it? What can we learn from it? How can we put that in effect right away? This constant feedback. So this way you can steer back on course quickly, before it's too late. And it's important to do this. I would love to hear from you. Like, what changes have you made in the past when you realize that you're off track, and what changes do you plan to make this mid-year, so that your goals can be shared? Feel free to call us or to send us an email at ask Dr. Sandra at aboveorbeyondjm.com. That's ask Dr. Sandra at aboveorbeyondjm.com. Share with us, what's going on. How are you with your goals? Are you on track? Are you off track? Are you ahead of target? Or maybe you don't know where you are, but at least you have some information that you can utilize immediately to get back on track. I'm also thinking right now of Microsoft when they were off track in 2014, with Satya Nadella as the CEO at the time. And he assessed what was going on, and he was not afraid to shift the company's focus to cloud computing and embrace a whole new growth mindset. And that's very important, having a growth mindset, being open to change, being open to opportunities and possibilities. It is said that all that we hope for, all that we want to achieve is on the other side of fear. It's on the other side of discomfort, right? So his leadership led to significant growth, and a revitalization of the company. And so the lesson there is that by regularly reassessing goals and being willing to make bold changes, they were able to continue to thrive and to innovate, and you can as well. The takeaway again is be consistent. Be consistent. Consistent progress and the courage to make the necessary changes as needed are key to long-term success. So imagine you're having a phenomenal December and meeting all your annual sales goal. What's the likelihood of that happening without regular assessments, without regular check-ins? Don't risk your year-end bonus check by neglecting to have these crucial check-ins. I know a lot of us have detailed plans already for the bonus check, right? So you don't want to wait and then it's too late. Remember that a successful year is built on consistent progress. Yes, maybe you could have a major deal closing in December, and that would meet your quota for the year. But what's the likelihood of that happening? Yeah. So I would rather bet on consistent progress and the courage to make the necessary changes as needed. Right? And we've covered a whole lot today, but I think it is so important, because so often, by February we are off track with the dreams and the goals and the what we want to achieve, because it's normal as human beings to kind of default to habit. Change is hard, and that is why it is so important to be focused. So keep these 10 checkup points in mind as you audit the health of your organization as we approach day 183. Thank you so much again for joining me today on Talking Business with Dr. Sandra. Until next time, always remember that ignorance is not bliss. Keep inspecting, keep adjusting, keep adapting, and keep thriving. See you next week.
In the dynamic world of business, reaching new heights requires innovative thinking and expert guidance. Welcome to Above or Beyond, where your vision meets our expertise. We bring over 70 years of combined experience and a proven track record in transforming challenges into opportunities. At Above or Beyond, every step we take is guided by a commitment to excellence. At Above or Beyond, we're not just business and management consultants. We're your partners in achieving the pinnacle of business success. Visit us at aboveorbeyondjm.com. Email us at info@aboveorbeyondjm.com or call us at 954-361-1745. At Above or Beyond, the goal is excellence.
Who wants to be a millionaire?